She bore her mother's burdens in silence until a live stream shattered the mask. In Boston's quiet corners, Abby Morrow gave up dreams to save her, only to hear scorn in return. A story of wounds and willpower. Will she heal her own heart? Uncover her truth now. The Providence Marriott hummed with the quiet bustle of a Sunday evening, its lobby a blur of conference attendees as Abigail Abby Morrow slipped into the elevator, her rolling suitcase thudding softly against the carpeted floor. The real estate conference had stretched over 3 days, panels on market trends, networking dinners, a chance to pitch her Boston listings to new clients, and now, at 32, she craved the solitude of her 8th-floor room. Her chestnut hair fell loose from its usual neat bun, brushing the shoulders of her navy blazer, and her hazel eyes, sharp from years of sizing up properties, softened with fatigue as the elevator dinged open. She'd left her modest South End apartment Friday, expecting a weekend of professional wins, not the gut punch waiting in her phone. Room 814 welcomed her with a sterile calm, crisp white linens, a mini fridge humming faintly, a window framing Providence's modest skyline. Abby kicked off her sensible heels, the carpet cool against her stockinged feet, and tossed her blazer over a chair, her suitcase unzipping with a practiced flick. She'd just settled onto the bed, a conference program crumpled beside her, when her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from her cousin Lily. "You need to see this. I'm so sorry." A link glowed beneath, and Abby's brow furrowed, her thumb hesitating before tapping it. Lily, 16 and obsessed with her budding influencer gig, had been live streaming again. Family dinners, quirky cousins, her latest bid for TikTok fame. What could be so urgent? The video loaded, the Marriott's Wi-Fi lagging just long enough to spike Abby's pulse. The screen flared to life. Her family's Boston dining room, its oak table cluttered with Sunday roast leftovers, wine glasses glinting under the chandelier she'd helped hang years ago. Her mother, Margaret Hayes, sat at the head, her auburn hair streaked with gray, her arthritis-stiffened hands curled around a wine glass Abby had stocked in their kitchen. Margaret's voice, sharp, familiar, cut through the chatter, oblivious to Lily's phone propped slyly in her lap. "Oh, please," Margaret scoffed, rolling her eyes with a theatrical flourish that drew nods from Abby's aunts and uncles. "My daughter thinks selling houses makes her some big success. She couldn't cut it in nursing school, and now she's just drifting through life like a desperate failure." Abby's chest tightened, a vice clamping her ribs as she stared at the screen, her breath shallowing. The room spun, the hotel's beige walls blurring as Margaret's words sank in, each syllable a needle piercing the quiet pride she'd nursed for 5 years. Since Margaret's rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis at 27, Abby had been her silent lifeline, driving her to appointments across Boston, wrestling with insurance forms, footing bills when coverage faltered, all while building a real estate business that demanded 60-hour weeks. She'd emptied her savings last year for a specialized treatment the insurer denied, a $20,000 hit no one at that table knew about. Her sacrifice a secret she'd worn like armor. "It's such a shame," Margaret continued, her tone dripping with relish as she sipped her wine, the same Cabernet Abby had bought for family dinners. All those grand dreams about nursing, now she just peddles homes to folks who actually made something of themselves. A chuckle rippled through the room, Uncle Roger's deep laugh, Aunt Lorraine's high-pitched giggle, caught by Lily's camera, its lens a traitor Abby hadn't seen coming. Her fingers gripped the phone, knuckles whitening as Margaret leaned toward Lorraine, her voice lowering conspiratorially. "Remember when she dropped out? Came home bawling about those exams. Pathetic. Now she acts like flipping a house every few months is some big win." The truth twisted the knife. Abby hadn't dropped out for lack of grit. She'd paused nursing school at 27, mid-degree and thriving, when Margaret collapsed at her office job, her diagnosis shattering their fragile 2-person world. Abby had swapped scrubs for listings, real estate's flexibility letting her chauffeur Margaret to specialists, manage meds, pay premiums, temporary, she had told herself, until stability returned. Temporary stretched into 5 years, every spare dollar funneled to her mother's care, her own dreams deferred. She'd thrived anyway, closed deals, built a name, yet here was Margaret, wine glass raised, shredding it all for laughs. The live stream lingered another minute, Lily's camera panning to mashed potatoes, then jerking away as she realized the venom unfolding before cutting off. Abby sat frozen, the hotel room's silence roaring as tears streaked her cheeks, hot and unchecked. Her mother's barbs weren't new, harsh quips about wasted potential, a tough love mask Abby had chalked up to pain or old-school grit. But this was glee, a public dismantling broadcast to Lily's followers, to strangers online, to a family who nodded along. 5 years of late nights, of arguing with insurers, of skipping dinners to balance Margaret's bills, erased in a sneering toast. Her phone buzzed again. "Lily, I'm so sorry you saw that. I didn't catch it till too late. Take it down." Abby's thumbs hovered, her vision blurring as the bitter truth crystallized. This wasn't a slip, a flare of frustration. It was Margaret unmasked, her real voice laid bare. She'd told herself the jabs were love twisted by illness, but the laughter, the relish, shattered that lie. "No," she typed, her fingers trembling but resolute. "Leave it up. I've got something to show you tomorrow when I'm back." She dropped the phone, her breath ragged, the sting of truth a wound she couldn't outrun. Not yet. Providence's skyline glowed beyond the window, but Abby saw only Boston looming ahead, a reckoning brewing with every mile she'd drive home. Monday morning draped the city in a gray haze, the skyline a muted blur beyond the glass doors as Abby checked out, her hazel eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. Margaret Hayes's voice. She couldn't cut it in nursing school, a desperate failure, looped in her mind, a relentless echo from the live stream she'd watched last night, her mother's scornful laughter cutting deeper with each replay. She'd barely slept, tears drying into a resolve she hadn't named yet, her suitcase thumping into the trunk of her Honda Civic as she slid into the driver's seat. The 2-hour drive back to Boston blurred into a haze of asphalt and headlights, Interstate 95 stretching ahead like a ribbon she barely registered. Her chestnut hair hung loose, tangled from restless tossing, and her navy blazer lay crumpled on the passenger seat, a relic of the real estate conference she'd cut short. Abby's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles pale, her mind a storm of fragments. Margaret's wine glass raised in mockery, Uncle Roger's chuckle, Aunt Lorraine's giggle, all captured on Lily's live stream. A public betrayal she hadn't seen coming. 5 years of quiet sacrifice, paying medical bills, driving to appointments, wrestling with insurers, flashed against those words. A ledger of devotion her mother had dismissed with a sneer. She'd been 27, halfway through nursing school and thriving, top grades, a knack for patient care, when Margaret's collapse at work upended her world. The call had come mid-lecture. "Your mom's in the hospital, rheumatoid arthritis, aggressive." Abby had rushed to her side, finding Margaret pale and trembling in a sterile bed, her voice a broken wail. "How will I pay for this? Insurance won't cover it all." Abby had squeezed her hand, her own dreams dimming as she promised, "We'll figure it out together." Real estate had been the answer, flexible hours, decent cash, meant as a stopgap to fund Margaret's care until she could return to school. Temporary turned permanent, her savings drained last year for a $20,000 treatment the insurer rejected, a secret she'd kept from the family now laughing at her, failure. The Boston skyline loomed as Abby exited the highway, her South End neighborhood unfolding, brownstones and budding maples, a world she'd carved with 60-hour weeks selling homes. She pulled into her driveway, the engine ticking silent, and sat, her breath steadying as clarity cut through the fog. Margaret's words weren't pain talking. They were truth unveiled, a mother who saw her daughter's sacrifices as weakness. Abby grabbed her laptop bag from the back seat, a folder labeled Mom's Care, sliding out. A meticulous record of every payment, every appointment. A hidden ledger she'd kept for taxes, now a weapon she hadn't planned to wield. She texted Lily, "Be there in 15, Maple Street Cafe." The cafe buzzed with mid-morning chatter, its brick walls lined with local art, the scent of espresso thick as Abby pushed through the door. Lily stood out instantly, 16, vibrant blue hair spilling from a messy bun, oversized headphones dangling around her neck. She waved, her face crumpling with guilt as Abby approached, the folder thudding onto the table between them. "I'm so sorry, Abby," Lily blurted, her voice a rush as Abby sat. "I didn't know Aunt Margaret would say that stuff. I was just streaming dinner like usual, and then it got so mean." Abby raised a hand, cutting off the ramble. her hazel eyes steady despite the ache beneath. "It's not your fault. Actually, I need to thank you." Lily's brows knitted, confusion plain, as Abby opened the folder, revealing a stack of papers, receipts, bank statements, appointment logs, 5 years of quiet support laid bare. "For showing me the truth," Abby said, her voice low but firm, sliding the folder forward. "This is what I've been doing while she calls me a failure." Lily flipped through insurance premiums, medication costs, specialist bills, her eyes widening with each page. "This is thousands," she gasped, tracing a $20,000 treatment receipt from last year. "Over $100,000, Abby corrected, her tone calm, a strange peace settling in. "I put nursing school on hold for her, drove her everywhere, fought insurers, emptied my savings. She doesn't know half of it. No one at that table did." Lily's jaw dropped, her blue hair swaying as she shook her head. "And she said all that? Called you pathetic? That's messed up." Abby nodded, the sting of Margaret's laughter still sharp, but her resolve sharper. "I thought her jabs were tough love, that she appreciated me underneath. Guess I was wrong." She leaned back, sipping the latte Lily had ordered her, the warmth grounding her as the cafe's chatter faded. "What are you gonna do?" Lily asked, closing the folder, her voice tentative. Abby pulled her phone, opening her banking app. Funds earmarked for Margaret's next treatment glowed on the screen. "I'm done," she said, transferring them to her savings with a tap, the action small but seismic. She slid her nursing school acceptance letter across the table, its edges worn from months of hesitation. "I start in the fall, no more deferring," she said, her voice steadying with each word. "I've been saving bits here and there, hoping to go back. Now I will." Lily's eyes lit up, a grin breaking through her guilt. "That's amazing, Abby. I'll send you the full video, just in case." Abby nodded, pocketing the letter, the folder, a testament to her unseen burden. "Thanks, I might need it." As they stood to leave, the cafe's hum swelled around them, but Abby felt lighter. Margaret's betrayal a wound, yes, but the ledger a shield, her first step toward a life unburdened by lies. Abigail Abby Morrow stepped out of the Maple Street Cafe into Boston's mid-morning bustle, the folder labeled Mom's Care tucked under her arm like a shield forged from 5 years of silent sacrifice. The city hummed around her, cars honking, pedestrians weaving through the South End's brownstone-lined streets, but her hazel eyes were steady, fixed on a horizon she'd reclaimed. Lily's parting words, "I'll send you the full video, just in case," echoed as Abby climbed into her Honda Civic, the engine rumbling to life with a certainty that matched her own. She'd left the cafe lighter, Margaret Hayes' live-streamed mockery, a desperate failure, still a splinter in her chest, but her decision to stop funding her mother's care had shifted something tectonic. The nursing school acceptance letter in her pocket glowed with promise. She'd start in the fall, no more delays. The drive home was short, her modest apartment welcoming her with the faint scent of lavender from a candle she'd lit days ago, before the Providence conference flipped her world. Abby dropped her keys on the counter, her navy blazer slipping to the floor as she sank into a kitchen chair, the folder thudding beside her laptop. She'd shown Lily the ledger, over $100,000 in medical payments, receipts, schedules, a secret she'd guarded from the family who'd laughed at Margaret's scorn. Now it was a weapon she'd wield not with anger, but with clarity. She opened her banking app, the transferred funds, meant for Margaret's next round of treatments, sitting in her savings, a quiet rebellion she'd only hinted at in the cafe. Her finger hovered, then tapped again, locking them away for her own future. The dining table became her war room, paperwork sprawling as she dismantled the financial web she'd spun for Margaret over 5 years. Abby dialed her mother's insurance company, her voice steady as she spoke to a confused representative. "I'd like to remove myself as guarantor on Margaret Hayes' accounts, effective immediately," she said, flipping through the folder to confirm dates. "Personal reasons, I won't be responsible after this month." The rep hesitated. "Miss Morrow, without your support, her premiums will rise significantly. Coverage may shift." Abby nodded to herself, unfazed. "I understand. Please send a formal letter detailing the changes to her address, 47 Elm Street, Boston. She needs to know." The call ended with a click, a thread severed, her resolve a steel rod in her spine. Her phone buzzed, Margaret's texts piling up since yesterday, ignored in the cafe's aftermath. Where are you? Waited an hour for my doctor. Insurance declined. Fix this, Abby. Answer me. Abby silenced it, the screen dark as she turned to her laptop, drafting an email to her extended family. Dear all, she typed, her fingers swift. After much thought, I'm stepping back from managing Margaret Hayes' medical and financial support. For 5 years, I've covered her care. Over $120,000 in expenses. Attached is proof. Personal reasons guide this choice. She may need help moving forward. Regards, Abby. She uploaded a spreadsheet. Every payment, every appointment. A ledger of her unseen burden, and hit send. The whoosh, a quiet thunder in the room. The afternoon stretched into a productive blur. Calls to specialists, updates to payment info, emails to pharmacies rerouting Margaret's prescriptions. Abby's folder guided her, its meticulous records a lifeline now turned boundary. She paused, sipping water, her mind flashing to the call that started it all. Margaret's collapse at 27. Abby rushing from nursing school to a hospital room, promising, "We'll figure it out." She'd swapped stethoscopes for listings, her dream deferred as real estate funded treatments, a stopgap that became her life. Margaret had stabilized, meds, therapy. But Abby's savings hadn't, her nursing path buried under bills. She shook off the memory, her resolve hardening. This wasn't about guilt, it was about truth. Her phone buzzed again, Margaret relentless. Are you ignoring me? Answer. Abby's finger hovered over block, but she set it down, turning to her laptop instead. She pulled up her nursing school portal, the acceptance letter a beacon from months ago. Nearly deferred again for Margaret's latest treatment plan. Not this time, she muttered, confirming her fall enrollment, her hazel eyes glinting with a fire she'd forgotten. The placement exam loomed in weeks. She'd need to study, adjust her real estate load. But the path felt hers, not borrowed. She printed a study schedule, tacking it to her fridge, a tangible step toward a dream Margaret had mocked as pathetic. Dusk settled over Boston, the South End streetlights flickering on, as Abby stood, stretching, her apartment a sanctuary of new purpose. She hadn't told Margaret she'd returned. Her mother thought she was still schmoozing in Providence, a ruse Abby let linger. The folder sat closed, its weight a quiet power. She'd shown Lily, but the family's reaction loomed, a storm she'd weather soon. Her phone buzzed once more. Lily. Got the email. Holy crap, Abby, you're badass. Video's ready if you need it. Abby smiled, texting back. Thanks, might. She'd face Margaret eventually, but not yet. Tonight was hers, a breaking point reached, the first breath of a life unshackled from a mother's scorn. The intercom crackled. Abby froze, peering through the peephole. Margaret stood on her porch, cane in hand, her face a mask of fury. Abby, I know you're there. Open this damn door. Her voice pierced the quiet, insistent. Abby stepped back, her heart thudding, but her voice rang clear through the wood. I'm not doing this anymore, Mom. You'll get a letter from the insurer soon. Read it. Margaret's pounding grew frantic. My meds were denied. What are you doing? But Abby turned away, her steps firm. I've heard what you think of me. Time to move on, she called, retreating to her laptop. The sting of truth now a spark igniting her freedom. Abigail Abby Morrow turned from her apartment door, her mother, Margaret Hayes' furious pounding. Open this damn door! Fading into a muffled echo as she crossed the hardwood floor of her South End sanctuary. Monday night pressed against the windows, Boston streetlights casting jagged shadows across her living room, the hum of the city, a distant roar beneath her steady breaths. Her hazel eyes flicked to the folder labeled Mom's Care on the dining table. Its pages, 5 years of medical payments, over $100,000, still warm from her showdown with Lily at the cafe hours ago. Margaret's voice pierced through again. My meds were denied. What are you doing? But Abby kept walking, her resolve a steel thread woven tight after declaring, I've heard what you think of me. Time to move on. She sank into her kitchen chair, the laptop screen glowing with the email she'd sent to her extended family. I've covered Margaret Hayes' care, $120,000 over 5 years. I'm stepping back. Here's the proof. Her fingers lingered over the keyboard, the sent confirmation a quiet thunder in the silence, a line drawn after years of unseen sacrifice. Margaret's pleas turned to shouts. Abby, fix this. then faded, her cane's thump retreating down the stoop. Abby exhaled, the weight of that confrontation lifting slightly, replaced by a stillness she hadn't felt in years. She'd removed herself as guarantor from Margaret's insurance earlier, her call to the company a clean cut. Send her the letter. And now the unraveling began, her mother's world shifting beneath her feet. Tuesday morning broke gray and sharp, the city waking as Abby brewed coffee, its bitter scent grounding her for the storm ahead. Her phone, silent since Margaret's barrage. "Where are you? Answer me," lit up with new notifications, a flood unleashed by her email. Aunt Clara's text flashed first. "How could you abandon your mother?" Shameful. Uncle Daniel followed. "Selfish. This isn't how family works." Abby's jaw tightened, her fingers scrolling past their judgment, each message a barb she'd expected but not softened for. Then Lily's. "Holy crap, they're freaking out. Proud of you." A smile flickered, her 16-year-old cousin's blue-haired defiance a lifeline amid the chaos. She sipped her coffee, the mug warm against her palms, when Aunt Evelyn's message popped up. "Takes courage to stand up, dear. Call if you need me." Abby paused, the rare support a balm against the onslaught, her chest loosening as she blocked Margaret's number. Click, then muted Clara and Daniel, their voices fading into a peaceful void. The family's outrage was predictable. Margaret had always spun narratives, her sharp tongue a shield, but Abby's proof, the spreadsheet of $120,000 in care, was a truth they couldn't dismiss. She'd sent it to unravel their illusions, not to beg for understanding, and now she waited, her apartment a fortress against their storm. The day surged into a whirlwind of action. Abby dialed pharmacies, redirecting Margaret's prescriptions to her own dwindling funds, her voice crisp. "She'll handle pickup now." She emailed specialists, withdrawing as emergency contact. Refer to Margaret Hayes directly. Each call, a thread snipped from the web she'd woven, since Margaret's arthritis diagnosis 5 years ago. Her nursing school acceptance letter sat on the counter, a beacon she'd nearly deferred again for Margaret's latest treatment plan. Now it anchored her. Fall enrollment confirmed with a call to Boston City Nursing School. "Placement exams Friday. Study up," the advisor said. And Abby nodded, pinning a schedule to her fridge, her hazel eyes glinting with purpose. By dusk, her dining table was a battlefield cleared, paperwork sorted, her role as Margaret's lifeline dismantled. She'd kept her phone silent, but curiosity nudged her to peek. Jenna's text glowed. "Mom's losing it. Says you're cruel." Abby smirked, a bitter twist to her lips. Margaret's deflection was textbook, her pleas a performance honed over years. She opened her banking app, the transferred funds, once Margaret's safety net, now her own. A nest egg for nursing tuition, untouched by guilt. The intercom buzzed again. Abby froze, peering through the peephole, but it was just a delivery, a forgotten grocery order from last week. She exhaled, the tension easing. Margaret's absence a victory she hadn't dared hope for yet. Wednesday morning, a formal envelope slipped through her mail slot. Abby's heart skipped, expecting a bill, but it was the insurance letter, misdelivered to her address instead of Margaret's. She skimmed it, premiums tripling, coverage thinning without Abby's support. Her mother's new reality in black ink. Guilt flickered, a reflex from years of duty, but it faded fast, replaced by a cool vindication. She'd told the insurer to send it to Margaret. She needs to know. And now she addressed a new envelope to 47 Elm Street, slipping the letter inside with a note. Sent here by mistake. Read it carefully. No signature, no plea, just facts. A final act of clarity as she mailed it. The slot's clang a quiet severing. Her phone buzzed. "Lily?" "Mom saw the email. She's pissed but quiet. Video's safe if you need it." Abby texted back, "Thanks, might," her resolve firming as she imagined Margaret's face at the letter's arrival, a reckoning she'd face alone. She turned to her laptop, pulling up nursing study guides, terminology, anatomy, her mind shifting to a future she'd reclaimed. The live stream's sting lingered. Pathetic, a failure, but it fueled her now, a fire beneath her calm. Abby stood, stretching, the city's dusk painting her windows gold. A new day loomed, ties unraveling, her path breaking free from Margaret's shadow. Abigail Abby Morrow stood in her South End apartment as Wednesday dusk deepened, the golden glow of Boston's streetlights seeping through her windows, casting slanted shadows across the hardwood floor. Her laptop screen flickered with nursing school study guides, anatomy charts, drug dosages, a lifeline to a future she'd reclaimed after mailing the insurance letter to Margaret Hayes earlier that day. The folder labeled Mom's Care sat closed on the dining table, its $120,000 record of 5 years' sacrifice, now a silent sentinel, her email to the family, "I'm stepping back, here's the proof," still rippling through their inboxes. She'd silenced her phone after Margaret's doorstep tirade last night. "Fix this," but its screen flared with unread texts, a storm she'd braced for but hadn't yet faced. She brewed tea, Earl Grey, a ritual from quieter days, its steam curling upward as she settled into her couch, the city's hum a soothing backdrop. Curiosity tugged. She unlocked her phone, the flood unleashed. Aunt Clara's message hit first. "Abandoning your mother like this. Disgraceful. Family doesn't do that." Uncle Daniel's followed. "Selfish beyond belief. What's wrong with you?" Abby's hazel eyes narrowed, her jaw tightening as she scrolled, each barb a shard of the judgment she'd expected, sharpened by Margaret's knack for rallying allies. Then Lily's text cut through. "They're losing it. Clara's calling you a traitor. You're a rock star for this." A faint smile flickered, her cousin's fierce loyalty a spark in the dark. Her tea cooled untouched as more poured in. Cousin Thomas, "Sort this out with Aunt Margaret. It's petty to drag us into it." Aunt Helen, "How dare you leave her helpless?" Abby's chest tightened, not with guilt, but with a weary clarity. Margaret had spun her tale, painting Abby as the villain who ditched her in crisis. She'd sent the spreadsheet, every payment, every appointment, to counter that lie, but their silence on it spoke volumes. They'd rather cling to Margaret's narrative than face the truth. Then Aunt Evelyn's message glowed. "Takes guts to break free, Abby. Call if you need me." Abby exhaled, the rare support a lifeline, her fingers hovering over block before muting Clara, Daniel, and the rest, their voices fading into a stillness she welcomed. Thursday dawned crisp, the city waking as Abby sipped coffee, her nursing study guides spread across the table. She'd dismantled her role as Margaret's crutch, insurers notified, prescriptions rerouted, leaving only echoes of a burden she'd shed. Her phone buzzed, Lily again. "Mom's fuming but quiet, sent you the full video if you need ammo." Abby texted back, "Thanks, holding it for now," her resolve firm as she turned to her next step, Boston City Nursing School. She dialed the admissions office, her voice steady. "Abigail Morrow, confirming my fall enrollment. Placement exams Friday, right?" The advisor's chipper reply, "Yes, study up, your record's strong," lit a fire under her, her hazel eyes glinting as she pinned a new study schedule beside the fridge, anatomy terms already swirling in her mind. The day blurred into action. Abby met Kylie, a bright-eyed college student she'd hired as a part-time assistant, at a cafe near the Common. "You'll handle listings, emails, keep my real estate ticking while I'm in class," she explained, handing over a binder of client notes. Kylie nodded, her ponytail bouncing. "Got it. Sounds fun." Abby smiled. Fewer properties, higher stakes, a leaner business to fund her nursing leap, free of Margaret's drain. She left the cafe, her steps light, and drove to the nursing school's admissions office, her acceptance letter crinkling in her bag. "Strong academic history," the advisor said, reviewing her file. "But you've been out a while. Placement exams key." Abby aced a practice test on her laptop that night, anatomy, pharmacology, confidence blooming with each correct answer. Friday morning, she sat in the school's testing room, pencils scratching as she tackled the exam. IV calculations, patient care protocols, her mind sharp, unshackled from years of Margaret's shadow. The proctor collected her paper, a nod signaling success, and Abby stepped into the crisp Boston air, the campus sprawling before her, a world she'd belonged to at 27, now hers again. She texted Lily, "Aced it, falls on." Lily's reply buzzed back, "Knew you'd kill it. Aunt Clara's still ranting, FYI." Abby smirked, pocketing her phone. Family fractures were Margaret's to mend now, not hers. That afternoon, a sleek envelope slipped through her mail slot. Abby's pulse spiked, expecting a bill, but it was the insurance letter, misrouted to her instead of Margaret's Elm Street address. She skimmed it, premiums tripling, coverage thinning, a stark outline of her mother's new reality without Abby's support. Guilt flickered, a faint echo of duty, but it dissolved fast, replaced by a cool vindication. She'd told the insurer to notify Margaret. She needs to know. And now she readdressed it to Elm Street, slipping in a note. Sent here by mistake, read carefully. No pleas, no apologies, just clarity, mailed with a thud that sealed her break. Back at her desk, Abby opened her real estate app. Listings to trim, Kylie's schedule to set. Her life reshaping around nursing's call. Lily texted again. Mom's saying Aunt Margaret's a mess, blaming you. Video's gold if you use it. Abby replied, Might, thanks, her mind drifting to the live stream, Margaret's sneer, the family's laughter. A wound turned fuel. She pulled up a nursing quiz, her pencil scratching answers as dusk painted her windows gold. Clara's rants, Daniel's scorn faded, her family fracturing around a truth they couldn't face. Abby stood, stretching, the silence a gift, her path unbroken, her dreams no longer tethered to a mother's disdain. Abigail Abby Morrow stood in her South End apartment as Friday dusk settled over Boston, the city's glow painting her windows in hues of amber and indigo. Her nursing study guides lay scattered across the coffee table, anatomy charts, pharmacology notes, a testament to the placement exam she'd aced that morning at Boston City Nursing School. The silence of her space was a balm, her phone muted since the family's fractured responses to her email. I'm stepping back, here's the proof, had flooded in days ago. Aunt Clara's scorn, Uncle Daniel's accusations, Lily's support, Aunt Evelyn's quiet nod, all swirled in her mind, but her hazel eyes gleamed with a steady resolve. Her path to nursing school, now hers alone. She stretched, the weight of Margaret Hayes's disdain. A desperate failure, a fading echo, replaced by a freedom she'd begun to savor. 2 weeks had passed since she had mailed the insurance letter to Margaret, detailing the tripled premiums and shifted coverage, her final untangling from 5 years of financial duty. Abby had thrown herself into preparations, hiring Kylie as her real estate assistant, trimming listings to high-value properties, her days a blend of showings and study. That afternoon, she'd wrapped a showing in Brookline, a charming 3-bedroom colonial, its wraparound porch a draw for a young couple. Anne lingered in her Honda Civic, savoring a sale well closed. Her navy blazer hung over the passenger seat, her chestnut hair loose when she glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. 2 figures stood beside Margaret's faded sedan in the parking lot, her mother, cane in hand, and Aunt Clara, arms crossed, their faces taut with purpose. Abby's pulse spiked, her first instinct to peel out, escape the inevitable storm, but their eyes locked on her car, pinning her in place. Running would only delay it, a confrontation she'd known was brewing since the live stream, since her email's truth bomb rattled their family web. She took a deep breath, steadying her hands on the wheel, and stepped out, the gravel crunching under her flats as she faced them. Margaret leaned heavily on her cane, her auburn hair unbrushed, her sharp features strained, a prop she wielded for sympathy, though her eyes burned with fury. Clara flanked her, her gray curls tight, her expression a mask of righteous indignation. Abigail, Margaret said, her voice dripping with a sickly sweetness that belied her glare. We need to talk. Abby clutched her keys, her hazel eyes steady as she met her mother's gaze. I have nothing to say, she replied, her tone flat. The weight of 5 years, $120,000, endless appointments, arming her resolve. Margaret's face twisted, the cane tapping the ground sharply. My medication costs tripled. I collapsed this week. Could have died, and you're too busy to care. Clara stepped forward, her voice stern. Your mother's struggling, Abby. Her specialist won't see her. Insurance is a mess. Is this what you wanted? Abby's chest tightened, not with guilt, but with a clarity honed over weeks of unraveling ties. She'd braced for this, Margaret's plea a familiar play, but the sting of failure from that live stream fueled her now. What I wanted, Abby said, her voice deliberate, rising above the parking lot's hum, was respect, appreciation for 5 years of sacrifice. Over $100,000, Mom, premiums, meds, driving you everywhere, while you called me pathetic behind my back. Margaret paled, her mouth opening to protest, but Abby pressed on, her hands trembling but her words unshaken. I saw the video, Lily's live stream from Sunday dinner. Heard you laugh, heard you mock the career I built to pay your bills. Clara's brows furrowed, doubt flickering as she glanced at Margaret. What video, Patricia? She asked, her tone sharp, but Margaret waved it off, her voice hardening. That's nonsense, out of context. I was venting, frustrated. You're twisting it to justify this cruelty. Abby's smirk was bitter, her keys digging into her palm. Twisting it? I've got receipts, literally. 5 years, Mom. I put nursing school on hold when you collapsed, drained my savings when insurance balked at your treatment last year. Every penny, every hour, while you sneered at me to their faces. She nodded at Clara, whose silence grew heavy, her arms uncrossing as doubt deepened. I sent the family proof, 120,000 documented. You didn't tell them about the video, did you? Hoped I'd stay quiet. Margaret's eyes flashed, her cane jabbing the gravel. You're overreacting. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. But this, cutting me off, I'm facing serious health issues. Something snapped. 5 years of suppressed fury boiling over as Abby's voice rose, steady and fierce. Everything I've done, nursing school deferred, savings gone, relationships sidelined, for you. I fought insurers, managed your care, built a business to keep us afloat, and you called me a failure, laughed while I paid for your wine. I sent proof to everyone, every payment, every sacrifice. So don't play victim here. Clara's gaze shifted, her lips parting as Margaret's defense faltered, her face a mask of panic. Abby, I'm your mother. After all I've done for you, how can you abandon me now? The plea was desperate, a tactic Abby knew too well, but it landed hollow. I gave you 5 years, Abby said, her voice calm, cutting through Margaret's whine. I heard what you really think. I'm done being your punching bag. She turned to Clara, her tone measured. She's with you now, right? Has she asked for cash yet? Driven her to appointments? Picked up her meds? Clara's silence was stark, her eyes darting to Margaret, who bristled but said nothing. That's what I thought, Abby said, stepping toward her car, keys gleaming in the dusk. I wish you well, but I'm not your crutch anymore. Margaret's voice rose, shrill. This isn't over. You can't walk away from family. But Abby paused, hand on the door, her reply quiet but firm. Family doesn't tear each other down or exploit them. Maybe ask who walked away first. She slid into the driver's seat, the engine roaring to life as Margaret gestured wildly, berating Clara, who stood stunned. Abby glanced in the rearview mirror, her mother's fury fading, Clara's doubt growing, and drove off, the parking lot shrinking behind her. Her hands shook, adrenaline surging, but no guilt followed, only a fierce clarity. A breaking point crossed. The city's lights blurred past, her nursing exam notes waiting at home, a future unshackled unfolding with each mile. Margaret's storm would rage, but Abby's path was hers now, a truth she'd claimed, no longer buried under a mother's disdain. Abigail Abby Morrow gripped the steering wheel as her Honda Civic hummed away from the Brookline parking lot, the dusk-lit silhouettes of Margaret Hayes and Aunt Clara shrinking in the rearview mirror. Margaret's shrill cry, "You can't walk away from family," faded into the city's hum, her cane-waving fury, a fleeting storm Abby had finally faced. Her hazel eyes gleamed with a fierce clarity, adrenaline pulsing through her veins as she merged onto the Boston streets, the confrontation's echo. I gave you 5 years, $120,000, ringing like a bell she'd struck. No guilt followed, only a lightness she hadn't known in years, her mother's scorn, a desperate failure, now fuel for a path she'd reclaimed. The skyline glowed ahead, her South End apartment a beacon as she drove home, nursing notes and a future waiting. 3 months blurred into a whirlwind of purpose. Abby aced her nursing placement exam, enrolled in Boston City Nursing School's accelerated program, and reshaped her real estate business. She'd hired Kylie, her sharp-eyed assistant, to manage listings, focusing on high-value properties to fund her tuition without Margaret's drain. Her days split between classes, IV techniques, patient charts, and showings, her nights buried in textbooks, a rhythm she'd carved with a steady hand. The family fracture had settled into an uneasy quiet. Margaret's texts silenced, Clara and Daniel muted. Lily's support a lifeline via occasional messages. They're still mad. Stay strong. Abby had let them stew, her emails proof, $120,000 in care, unanswered by most, a truth they'd rather bury than face. Friday evening arrived crisp and electric. The Boston Real Estate Association's annual awards ceremony unfolding in a downtown hotel ballroom. Abby had skipped it in past years, too tangled in Margaret's care to mingle, but this time, her broker Jeffrey had nominated her for the Resilience in Real Estate Award, a nod to agents thriving amid hardship. She stepped into the ballroom, her dark blue dress, a rare splurge, hugging her frame, her chestnut hair swept into an elegant twist. The space buzzed with polished suits and clinking glasses, colleagues, mentors, competitors, a world she'd built while shouldering unseen burdens. She grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, her hazel eyes scanning the crowd as Jeffrey waved her over, grinning. "You're a lock for this. Nobody's juggled what you have." Abby mingled, her smile genuine as she chatted with Margot Stevens, a top broker who'd heard of her Brookline sales. "You've got a knack for tough markets," Margot said, sipping her wine. "What's your secret?" Abby shrugged, her voice light. "Adapt or sink. Real estate's like life that way." Her phone vibrated in her clutch, twice, insistent. But she ignored it, savoring the moment, her first night free of Margaret's shadow in years. The MC's voice cut through. "Time for awards!" And Abby joined Jeffrey's table, her pulse quickening as the room hushed. The Resilience in Real Estate Award honors an agent who's overcome extraordinary challenges while excelling, the MC began. And this year's winner is Abigail Morrow. Shock rooted her to her seat, Jeffrey's elbow nudging her as applause erupted. Loud, warm, a wave she hadn't expected. She rose, legs unsteady, and walked to the stage, the crystal trophy gleaming in her hands, its weight a testament to a fight she'd won. The mic loomed, and she took a breath, her voice steadier than she felt. "Thank you. This means more than I can say. The past 5 years tested me, balancing a career with personal demands I didn't see coming." She paused, Margaret's sneer flickering in her mind. Pathetic. But she pressed on. "Real estate taught me resilience, adapting to markets, solving crises, and that carried me through. Now, I'm chasing nursing, my first dream, while still serving clients. This award isn't just for work. It's proof we can reinvent ourselves, no matter the odds." The room roared again, her colleagues' cheers, Jeffrey's grin, Margot's nod, a validation that drowned out years of doubt. She returned to her seat, handshakes and hugs following, her trophy a quiet triumph beside her. As the ceremony wound down, her phone buzzed again, 5 missed calls, an unknown number, and a text from Lily. "It's me on Uncle Tom's phone. Emergency, call back ASAP." Abby's stomach knotted, her champagne souring as she stepped into a hushed hallway, dialing. "Abby, thank God," Lily answered, her voice tight. "I'm at the hospital with your mom. She fell. Maybe a med reaction. She's asking for you." Abby closed her eyes, the old pull, guilt, duty, flickering. But it didn't grip her like before, its claws dulled by months of resolve. "Is she stable?" she asked, her tone even. "Yeah, overnight observation. They adjusted her dose," Lily said. "Uncle Tom insisted I call. She's fine, but dramatic." Abby glanced at the ballroom doors, the awards chatter spilling out, her trophy glinting in her tote. "Patrick here," Tom's voice cut in, gruff. "She needs you. Doctors have questions we can't answer." Abby's jaw tightened, her new life tugging against the old. "I'm at an event. Work thing," she said, firm. "I'll come after 2 hours." "This is your mother," Tom snapped. "Surely a party can wait." Abby's grip on her phone tightened, but her voice held steady. The old Abby would have caved, racing to Margaret's side. "I've given her 5 years, Tom. Every day, every dollar. I'll be there in 2 hours to answer medical questions. That's it." Silence stretched, Tom's huff audible, then a shuffle. Lily back. "Take your time. She's okay." Abby ended the call, exhaling, her reflection in a hall mirror catching her eye. Shoulders squared, eyes clear, trophy in hand. She rejoined the ceremony, Margot clapping her shoulder. "Nursing? Impressive pivot." As Abby smiled, her worth no longer Margaret's to define. The applause faded, colleagues dispersing, and Abby gathered her tote, the crystal award nestled inside, a symbol of resilience she'd earned, not borrowed. She'd face the hospital soon, Margaret's pleas, Tom's guilt, but not as a crutch, not anymore. The night air bit as she stepped outside, her car waiting, the drive a chance to steel herself for one last duty before her life was fully hers. A reward hard won, a breaking point turned triumph. Abigail Abby Morrow stepped out of the downtown Boston hotel ballroom into the crisp Friday night air, the Crystal Resilience and Real Estate Award nestled in her tote bag, its weight a quiet triumph against her hip. The city's neon pulse flickered around her, taxis weaving, streetlights casting jagged pools of gold. As she crossed to her Honda Civic, the echo of applause still ringing in her ears. Her dark blue dress shimmered faintly under the glow, a rare splurge she'd worn with pride, her chestnut hair slipping loose from its twist as she slid into the driver's seat. Lily's text, "Take your time, she's okay," and Uncle Tom's gruff plea, "She needs you," lingered from the call 2 hours ago, a hospital summons she'd delayed for the ceremony. Abby's hazel eyes glinted with resolve. She'd go, but on her terms, not Margaret's. The 20-minute drive to Massachusetts General Hospital blurred past. Boston's skyline, a familiar backdrop, her mind replaying the award speech. Real estate taught me resilience. Now, I chase nursing. She'd stood tall, her voice steady. The room's cheers a balm to years of Margaret's scorn. A desperate failure, unveiled in that live stream. The parking lot loomed, sterile and dim, and Abby grabbed her tote, the trophy's box peeking out as she locked the car. Her flats clicked against the asphalt, her pulse steadying with each step. 5 years of sacrifice, over $120,000, had ended in that Brookline lot 2 weeks ago. I'm done being your crutch. Tonight wasn't a return. It was a final marker. The hospital's antiseptic chill hit her as she pushed through the doors. The lobby's fluorescent hum, a stark contrast to the ballroom's warmth. Lily texted the room number, 412, and Abby rode the elevator, her reflection in the steel panels sharp, shoulders back, eyes clear, a woman unburdened. She stepped onto the 4th floor, the murmur of nurses and beeping monitors guiding her to Margaret's room. Inside, her mother sat propped in bed, monitors blinking, her auburn hair unkempt, her face alert despite the fall Lily had flagged. A medication reaction, not a crisis. Uncle Tom slumped in a chair, his gray hair mussed, while Lily hovered near the window, her blue hair a splash of defiance in the sterile space. "Finally," Margaret said, her voice a venomous hiss as Abby entered, her arthritis-stiffened hands clutching the blanket. "Nice of you to fit us into your busy schedule, off partying while I'm here suffering." Abby set her tote on a table, the trophy's corner visible, and met her mother's glare with a calm she'd honed over months. "Hello, Mom. I came as soon as my event ended. How are you feeling?" Margaret's eyes narrowed, her lips pursing at the measured tone. "How do you think? I collapsed, could have died, and you're too busy playing dress-up to care." Tom cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "Doctors say it's a reaction to her new meds. Adjusted now, she'll go home tomorrow." Abby nodded, her expression neutral, a shield against the bait. "That's good. She's stable then." Margaret's face contorted, frustration flaring at the lack of groveling. "Stable? This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't abandoned me. My new insurance is worthless. Can't afford my meds, doctors dropping me. All because of you." Abby's grip on her tote tightened, but her voice held firm, honed by weeks of clarity since that live stream. "Pathetic, a failure, and the parking lot clash." "I'm sorry it's been tough adjusting," she said, sincere but unyielding. "But I've done my part. 5 years, Mom." Margaret's eyes flashed, her cane propped beside her a silent prop as she leaned forward. "Your part? I'm facing serious complications. I could die, and you're off at some party." Tom frowned, glancing between them, but Abby stepped closer, her voice rising with a calm fire. 5 years, $120,000. Premiums, treatments, driving you everywhere while you mocked me to their faces. I saw the video, Mom, Lily's live stream. Heard you laugh, call me a failure, the career that funded your care a joke. Tom's brow furrowed. "What video, Patricia?" But Margaret waved it off, her tone shrill. "That's nonsense. I was venting upset. You're blowing it out of proportion." Abby set the trophy on the bedside table, its crystal catching the light. Resilience in Real Estate, Abigail Morrow, a stark rebuttal to Margaret's sneer. "I won this tonight," she said, turning to Tom. for thriving despite challenges, 5 years of supporting her, over $100,000 documented for the family. I put nursing school on hold when she collapsed, drained my savings for her treatments while she laughed at me. Lily nodded from the corner, her eyes fierce. Video's gold if you need it. As Tom's doubt grew, his gaze shifting to Margaret's paling face. I didn't come to fight, Abby continued, her voice softening but firm. I came to answer medical questions, ensure she's okay. I don't wish her harm, I never have, but I can't keep sacrificing for someone who doesn't value it. The room fell silent, Margaret's sharp retort stilled, her eyes darting to the trophy, proof she couldn't dismiss. Patricia, Tom said slowly, what's this video? Margaret flinched, her voice faltering. It's nothing. Abby's twisting it. But Tom's frown deepened, Lily stepping forward. It's real, Uncle Tom. She didn't tell you. Abby met her mother's glare, steady. I gave you everything, heard what you really think. I'm done being your villain. Margaret's lips trembled, but no defense came. Her mask cracked, the trophy's gleam a silent accusation. I should go. I've got class tomorrow, Abby said, retrieving her tote. Lily, need a ride? Her cousin nodded, slipping past Tom's stunned silence. As they left, Tom's hushed voice followed. What did you say, Patricia? A question Abby wouldn't stay to hear. The hospital's sterile air gave way to Boston's night, her car humming as Lily climbed in, whispering, You're incredible. Abby drove, the trophy beside her. A quiet victory. Margaret's pleas unanswered, her own worth unshaken. Months later, her white nursing uniform hugged her frame, hands steady as she set an IV in a teaching hospital ward, her instructor's nod. Excellent, Morrow. A balm to old wounds. A text from Lily glowed. Your interview's viral, 20,000 views. The Boston Medical Journal had spotlighted her shift from real estate to nursing, boundaries her shield. Tom called one night, hesitant. Saw your interview, proud of you. She did too, went quiet. Abby smiled, tears prickling. Validation, not from Margaret, but enough. Her trophy sat beside nursing texts, a mantle of reclaimed dreams, Margaret's silence a void she didn't need to fill. She'd unshackled her path, her future hers, a self-worth forged in resilience, unshaken by a mother's disdain. Every step she took rebuilt her worth, proof you can rise above betrayal and claim your own light. Resilience isn't given, it's earned. Forge yours. If Abby's fight inspired you, hit that subscribe button. More stories of courage await. Like, comment your thoughts, or city. I'd love to connect. Let's keep chasing dreams together. See you in the next one.